The night the storm trapped us inside that forgotten mountain cabin, I thought the worst thing I'd face was the freezing wind tearing through the walls. I was wrong. Because when the power died, the temperature dropped, and shadows swallowed the room whole, the woman I least expected to see shivering beside me, the CEO who controlled half the city, looked at me with trembling lips and whispered the last thing I ever imagined. "Can I slip under your blanket?" Not because of romance. Not because of desire. But because it was the only way either of us would survive the night. I had no idea that one desperate moment would unravel secrets, break walls, and change both our lives forever. That I never planned to meet the CEO of the company that fired me. And I definitely didn't plan to get trapped with her on a snowy mountain. My name is Ian, a 32-year-old single dad of a 7-year-old girl, Hiba. 3 months ago, my company shut down the entire logistics department due to budget restructuring. In simple words, I was jobless. Bills were stacking. Hiba's school fee was due. The stress was eating me alive. So when I got a message saying, "Your presence is requested at the annual Growth Summit. Opportunity for reemployment available," I didn't think. I just packed my bag, bundled Hiba with my brother, and drove toward the hillside resort where the summit was held. That's where I first saw Sarah Meir, the CEO, known for her sharp decisions, colder expressions, and absolute discipline. Every employee feared disappointing her. I feared her too, if I'm honest. During her speech, she raised a point about the failed logistics department. My old department. My heart sank. After her session, I approached her to explain, to defend my team, to somehow convince her that our jobs mattered. But before I could say a word, she said without looking at me, "Not now. I'm heading to the charity cabin for inspection. We'll talk later." I was frustrated. But fate had other plans, cruel, strange, and life-changing. Because when she stepped outside, the resort manager asked if anyone could accompany her as the path was getting unsafe due to the storm. Nobody volunteered. Nobody wanted to go with the cold CEO. I sighed. Raised my hand. "Fine," she said, still not really looking at me. "Come along." We drove up the narrow road, snow thickening with every minute until we could barely see the sky. And then, the road vanished under the blinding white storm. The car slid. Swerved. Spun. We crashed into a snowbank, trapped, engine dead. Sarah looked at me, for the first time with fear instead of authority. "There's a cabin nearby," she said shakily. "If we don't get there, we won't last." We stumbled through the storm, freezing, soaked, barely seeing anything. By the time we reached the cabin, my fingers were numb. The heater inside didn't work. The power cut out minutes later. The temperature dropped sharply. I gave her my jacket. She refused at first, pride flashing in her eyes, but I placed it on her shoulders anyway. "It's okay. I'll manage." "You'll freeze," she said. "I'm a dad. Surviving hardship, it's kind of my thing." Her eyes softened, the first crack in her icy exterior. Hours passed. Our breaths turned into white fog. My teeth chattered. Sarah's face was pale. And then she whispered the sentence that changed everything. "Ian, see, can I slip under your blanket? Just until it gets warmer?" Not a romantic whisper. Not a flirt. Just two human beings fighting the cold. That moment. That vulnerability. It was the first time Sarah Meir didn't look like a CEO. She looked like a person, scared, freezing, and trying to survive. I lifted the blanket, and she moved closer, still shivering. And for the first time in years, my life took a turn I didn't see coming. The wind outside howled like a wounded creature. Inside, the cabin felt like a box of ice. Sarah lay close enough for our breath to warm the same space. Her hands trembled. Her voice shook. I'm not used to this, she whispered. Storms? I asked. No. She exhaled, shaky. Depending on people. That surprised me. She always looked invincible, the kind of person who never needed anyone. Then why did you ask me for help? I asked softly. She hesitated. Because you were the only one who didn't look at me like I'm some machine. The cabin creaked with the wind. Her eyes reflected pain, the kind of pain hidden behind success, power, and flawless eyeliner. I didn't want to fire your department, she said out of nowhere. My breath stopped. You didn't? No. Her voice cracked. I fought to keep it. But the board wanted cuts. I lost that battle. Why was she telling me this? Why confess now? Perhaps storms break more than trees. They break walls too. You should have told us, I whispered. I know, she admitted, closing her eyes. But leaders aren't allowed to look weak. I almost laughed bitterly. Weak? You walked through a storm in heels. She actually smiled, the first genuine smile I had ever seen on her face. Silence settled again, but it was softer now. Not cold. Not heavy. Just honest. Hours later, the storm worsened. The temperature dropped again. I could feel her body shaking uncontrollably. Ian. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For putting you in this situation. For the job. For everything. I swallowed hard. It's not your fault. She looked at me, eyes glossy from exhaustion. Your daughter, you said her name is Hiba, right? 7 years old? Yeah. You work so hard for her. She's all I have. Something changed in her expression, admiration, respect, maybe a hint of regret. Ian, she said quietly. When we get out of here, come see me. I think I owe you more than an apology. What do you mean? She pressed her lips together. A chance. A real one. Something better than what you lost. My heart thumped. Not because of opportunity, but because the storm had revealed something unexpected. Behind the CEO had always been a human being buried under pressure. Hours later, rescue finally arrived. Lights flashed through the window. Voices called out. Sarah stood with difficulty, still wrapped in the blanket we shared. As she was escorted out, she turned back to me and said, Ian, don't disappear after today. Please. Her voice carried none of the authority she was famous for, only sincerity. And just like that, a storm outside ended. But a new one inside me began.